hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation, Betting Like a Pro, Good Bets and Bad Bets with Professor Rick Ord. Professor Ord received his MS in computer science from the University of California, San Diego in 1987. He was director of the computing facility in the CSE department from 1988 to 2001, and he became a full-time lecturer in the CSE department. He is a current and maritime mentor, and he is helping guide Chancellor scholars towards their educational and career goals. We are very happy to have you with us today. Please let us know, Professor Ord, if you'd like people to enter their questions in the chat, raising their hand or unmuting themselves, whatever works for you. Thank you.
It all works for me.
Great. Okay, so make sure to enter your questions in the chat or raise your hand. Probably there's a few of us here, so we might not be able to unmute ourselves. But yeah, go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Okay, let me see here. All right, is my screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Rick Ord, as Vanya said, and quite a while ago, oops, hold on, there we go. Quite a while ago, I was asked to teach a discrete math class in CSE 21, and I was a real bits and bytes guy, not much of a theory guy. So traditionally, they'd used cards and other things to look at probability and statistics, expected value and expected return and things like that, combinatorics. But I decided to use some casino games. So, this talk is more about using some discrete math skills to understand some casino games, but at the same time, being able to do, being able to do, some other things to understand discrete math concepts also. Now, a long time ago, when I was used to play blackjack all the time, and I'm going to say why I don't play blackjack anymore and what my favorite casino game is now. But a long time ago, when I was still learning blackjack, I asked a blackjack dealer whether it was a good move or not to take a hit on a certain situation, set of cards. And the blackjack dealer told me something that I have always remembered since then. It says, I'd rather be lucky than good. And that's really true in almost all cases, not just gambling, but being lucky is a big part of everything. One thing to really understand is that the house always is going to win in the long run. So the longer you play, the more likely you're going to lose. So, what we're looking at is long-term averages, but, there are streaks of, winning streaks and bad streaks, losing streaks. So you want to try to get in and out on a winning streak. And the whole idea is to have fun and not necessarily go and make your money. That's why we're working at the university and using 403Bs and saving for retirement, because it's not like you're going to gamble and do that. One of the big issues here is that games that are really easy to learn how to play and learn how to do betting are usually the ones with the worst odds. They really are the worst odds, and we're going to take a look at that and realize that there really are no professional players in a lot of these casino games. Like there's no professional Keno players because it's terrible. There's no professional roulette, slot machine, craps, blackjack, all sorts of Pai Gow poker, it doesn't matter. There are no professional players in any of these games because it's all negative expectation. The longer you play, the more you're going to get. So when I was talking to some friends about, hey, I'm going to be using some concepts that I learned when I taught this discrete math class in CSE, they said, well, what is a discrete math? So I put this slide up here very quickly just last night about the difference between continuous math and discrete math. So continuous math uses real numbers, where discrete math uses integers. Continuous math is more of measuring things, measuring rates of change, measuring velocity, measuring various things with real numbers, where discrete math uses integers to count things. How many different possible permutations or combinations do we have, for selecting something within a universe of some set, things like that. Another way to look at it is continuous math is like a ramp that's just continuously going up, where discrete math is more like stairs, where we can count the stairs. We have discrete, specific measurements of time, which is the steps that we can go and take up. And we don't necessarily need to record every minute infinite part of the slope. We just do it on individual steps basis. So ramp versus stairs is a good example. Continuous math is analog, and we live in an analog world. So, you know, the voice that you're hearing from me right now is all analog waveforms that our ears pick up and translate into nerve signals that we then in our brain feel that. Inside the computer, it's all digital. So we have A to D, analog to digital conversion to put things in a computer, say like music, and store it as just a bunch of zeros and ones. And then we have D to A converters that take it back out of digital form and put it back in an analog form, like waveforms we can hear. A classic example of continuous math is calculus, rates of change, etc. Where we have common orders probability, we're definitely going to be looking at that, set theory, and Boolean logic. So this is just a real quick overview of continuous versus discrete. And there's also an area of math that's kind of in the middle called concrete math, where it's the first con of continuous and crete of discrete. So it's concrete, which is an intersection of the two. I'm not going to talk about that. So let's start off with some classic games, and we're going to go from worst to best in this presentation. So start off with Keno. It's really just pure luck. It's basically like playing the lottery, and it's the king of all the sucker bets. The house edge, which gives the house the big advantage, and why all the casinos have so many lights and they're so big and have these expensive things, is really high. It's on the order of 30%. So this is terrible. And they also have video Keno, which is as opposed to the live one, which is slightly better odds. But when you have anything that's doing video on a machine, you get much faster play, and that just leads to losing more money faster. And so definitely you don't want to do Keno at all. Slot machines is the next one. Again, this is giving you the pure junk food appeal, where everybody knows it's bad for you, but most people just can't resist it. So even me, walking through a casino sometimes, see a slot machine, and go, oh, I like that. That was a TV show I liked, or whatever. It's this appeal that you get, but it's really terrible too. And again, you have video. It's a video gaming, so it's not mechanical anymore. So it's fast play, and you get multiplay. You can just hit one button to get maximum bet 5, 10, bets, as if you're putting the coins in. And again, with any kind of video gaming, you can lose money a lot faster. So let's take a look at an analysis of one type of slot machine. So casinos used to, and I don't see that anymore, but they used to have some machines that they would advertise a payout. Now, what that really meant, you didn't know. You don't know if that means that, oh, well, 97% of the time it's going to give you your money back, or it's going to pay something 97% of the time. So very few machines are actually advertised these days. But let's just take a look at this and assume that it's winning back what you bet, just by a 1-to-1. So the probability of win is 97% because it says it's 90% payout. So the expected return is going to be, the probability of win minus 1, and it's going to end up being a -3%. So that's meaning that if you put $100 into this machine, you're expected to lose $3 out of every $100, which is not that good. But in this example, it's 3%, which is the house edge, but this is really best conditions, because almost everywhere you'll see that the average conditions for most machines, especially those that don't advertise any payouts, is more like a 6 to 10% house edge. So if it's a 10% house edge, that means that you're only expected to win maybe 90% of the time, and who knows how much you're really going to be winning on that. And so for every $100 you put in, you're expected to lose 10 or get about 90 back. This is not good at all. House edges at this level is not good at all. So I'm going to skip over slot machines no matter what you think. They're not good to do. Okay, so let's take roulette. So we're getting to a little bit more advanced games where, again, the harder it is to learn how to play and bet, the worse the odds are. This is actually pretty easy to play, and there's a lot of games in here. So the standard American roulette has 38 possible outcomes. We have 1 through 36. They alternate between, not fully alternate, because you can see that sometimes they'll have, blacks or reds together. So we have 1 through 36 plus a green 0 and a green double 0. So there's really 38 possible outcomes. So here we have that. The payout for a single number, say you bet on a 4 here, the single payout is 35 to 1. We're going to see that that's not good. That's not really good at all. And we're going to do an analysis of that. So that means that if you bet $1 on a single number and you hit that number, the little ball lands in that number, then the casino, the house will pay you, the dealer will pay you $35 plus your $1 bet so that you pull off of the table $36. Now, we look at the payout as the amount of money that they give you. Now, and then plus your initial bet. Now, another way of looking at this is that you put your dollar down and the house takes it. They take that dollar, and then if you win, they're going to give you $36 back. So there's two different ways of looking at it. Mostly it's the payout is going to be 35 to 1. So they give you $35 for your one, so that you end up pulling off $36 in the end because of your initial bet like that. So we got red and black, even and odd, whether it's even odd number, the low half and the high half, and all of those pay even money, which is just a 1-to-1. You bet $1, and if you win $1, so you end up with $2 in your pocket. The columns, which are 1, 4, 7, 10, here's one column, here's another column, here's another column, and then also the dozens, the first dozen, the middle dozen, the third dozen, all pay 2 to 1, which means that if you win $2 plus your $1 bet, so you're pulling off $3 from that. Okay, so let's take a look at some analysis of this. So the probability of that roulette ball landing in a red slot. Well, we said back here that there are 36 numbers and there are 18 red and 18 black. So it's 18 possible red spots that we can land in out of a total universe of 38 different slots, because there's 36 numbers plus 0 double 0, which is 38. Okay, and then the payout for this is 1-to-1. So again, you do a $1 bet, you get paid $1 plus your initial $1. So you're pulling off a total of $2. Your profit is going to be $1 because you still put the $1 up. If you lose, you get nothing. So the expected value then in terms of this is we pull $2 off on a win for the probability to win, and we pull nothing off, a 0, if it's not a red. So the number of reds are 18 out of 38. So we do 2 of that plus 0 times the other numbers if it's not red, which is going to be 18 plus the 0 and double 0, which is 20 over them. And we get 36 out of 38. And then we subtract 1 from that to get a negative 2 over 38, or a negative 5.26%. So the house edge, this is how you calculate it. The house edge is 5.26%, which is pretty bad. You know, this is 5 1/4. That means that you're only going to get paid back only 95% or 94 and 3/4%. Now, there are 2 ways to calculate these house edges. This is one of them, where you take the total amount of money that you pull off and multiply it times the probability of getting that, and then 0 if you pull no money off of the rest in there. Now, another way of doing that is saying, well, let me look at, how much it's costing me on the profit. So if I get paid, the payoff is 1-to-1. So I get paid 1 if it's red, but I lose 1 if it's not red, will come out to the exact same thing. So there's just 2 different ways of calculating it. I'm going to probably stick with this because this is more traditional from some of the books that I've used and done with my class. But there's a couple different ways of doing it, whichever is easier for you to think about or wrap your head around. Now, the roulette ball has no memory. So one trick that the casinos do is they'll have this tower that shows the last 15 to 20 different numbers in the order that they have. So quite often, people will come up and say, holy mackerel, look, there's been 15 consecutive red winners on this roulette wheel. So you think that black is due. Oh my God, black has to be done. It has to be ready. But you've got to remember that each spin and each roll of the ball is a completely separate and discrete event. And dice or roulette, just like dice, don't have any memory. So they have no idea whether they had a red, black, or a green in the previous roll, because every one of these are going to be separate events that we can calculate the probability. So the probability of getting a black is really just the same as getting a red, which is still going to be 5.26% on the house edge. You get a negative return because the percentage that of slots that are not red are much higher than the number of slots that are red. So it's not an even payout at all. The house has an edge, and the house edge, again, here is 5.26%. So do not be dismayed or get swayed by any of these columns that show that the, what streak you have. Even if it's the exact same number, that's perfectly fine. That's just within the realm of probability, because each one of these numbers represents a separate and distinct event that occurs and has nothing to do with anything that happened previously in it. And we're going to look at another game where it does make a difference what happened beforehand, and we'll talk about that later. So what is the probability of landing in one of the columns or dozens? So the columns and dozens, again, back here are the columns, 1, 4, 7, etc., 2, 5, 8, etc. down. So these are the columns that pay 2 to 1. And then also the dozens, the first dozen, the second dozen, and the third dozen. These all pay 2 to 1. So let's do analysis of this very quickly. And let's just use an example of the first dozen. It really doesn't matter because they're all the same. So it's 12. So there's 12 possible slots that the ball could land in that we will win out of the 38. The payout is 2 to 1, so we pull off $3, our winnings of $2 plus our original $1. So that $3 times the probability of us landing in one of those 12 slots, plus 0, we get 0 back pulling off the table for all the rest. So the expected return is going to be that expected value, which is 36 out of 38 minus 1, which is 38 of 30, which is again a minus 2 over 38, which is a negative 5%. So again, the house edge is going to be 5.26%. And here's another way of calculating it, where you look at, well, I win 2 or I lose this 1, and it comes out to be the same, in that. Okay. And then look at the single numbers. So with single numbers, we put one chip on one, some number of chips on one. And let's just say that we put it on 23, just as an example. So the probability of that ball, the roulette ball, landing in the slot 23 on the wheel is 1 out of 38, because there's 38 possible slots. 36, 1 through 36 plus a 0 and double 0. So the payout is 35 to 1. Where we get $35 plus our original. So we get 36 times the probability of that, times 0 plus 0 times the probability of it not landing, which is 37 out of 38. Again, it's 36 out of 38. We subtract from 1, we get a negative 2 over 38, or a 5.26% house edge. And again, this is the other way of doing it, which is fine. Now, what we want to do is look at what the true odds are and see why there's this house edge, because the true odds of landing in a single number is 1 out of 38. So the payout should be 37 to 1. The casino pays us 37 plus our one bet, or one chip bet that we made, so that we pull off 38. And if you plug in 37 in here, 37, pull out 38, 38 over 38 is 1, minus 1 is 0. So the house edge is 0 if they pay out true odds. So this is how casinos make their money. They calculate what the true odds are. In this case, it's 37 to 1, but they only pay out 35 to 1. And this is how you can calculate what the house edge is. And 5% is still fairly high. So that's not. So I want to go back very quickly. Look at, this is for single numbers. The house edge is 5.26%. The columns and dozens is house edge of 5.26%. The black or red or any of those other values that pay 1 to 1, including even and odd and the first half and the second half numbers, all of those are going to be 5.26%. So they have it down where no matter what you play, on there. The house edge is 5.26%. Now, of course, you could go and do multiples, but it's still going to be a house edge and it's close to over 5%. So the next, are there any questions about roulette before we go there? And we can always come back. Roulette is easy to play, but it's got a bad house edge on it. Okay, so let's look at blackjack, also called 21. So most players, or most people know how to play blackjack, but there's some real problems with blackjack in most of the casinos these days, and we'll talk about that. So players are dealt 2 cards, dealer has one face up and one face down, so you get to see what your cards are. You get to see one of the dealer's cards, and what we want to try to do is end up with a higher total than the dealer without exceeding a total of 21, or have the dealer bust go over 21 where we don't. Okay, so most of the time what you do is you draw until you hit 17, but you know, if the dealer has a 6 or a 5 showing, then you only draw to 12. And you know, you want to be able to double down in cases like that. And also there's all sorts of other things that you could do. So there's a lot more thinking in blackjack than there is in roulette that we just talked about. Face cards are worth 10, and aces can count either as 1 or 11. You can decide in that. And if you're dealt an ace and a 10 or face card on the deal, this is called a natural or a blackjack right away. It's at 21. Now, with this, there's basic strategy rules, and you can find these all over the internet, and casino, gift shops sell these too, and you can usually take them to the table if you want and see what to do, like aces and eights, no matter what the dealer has, you're going to split. So this tells you basically based on probability of this. If the dealer's up card is one of these, then this is what you have these cards, this is what you do. You either hit or stand, double down, split, etc. A house edge playing a perfect, and this is important, a perfect basic strategy is about 0.5%, which is really good. So back in the day, I used to play blackjack all the time because it really had, you know, a low house edge, just 0.5% if you followed the perfect basic strategy. And after a while, you get to know that. The trouble is that most people don't follow a perfect basic strategy. They follow most of it, but every once in a while they, oh, I'm feeling lucky, so they take a hit when maybe they shouldn't have, or they split when they maybe shouldn't have, or double down when maybe they shouldn't have. So that makes it worse, more for a house edge of that. So you have different basic strategies depending on how many decks you have too. So it's very typical these days to have a 6 or an 8 deck shoe. So the rules for doubling down and splits are just a little bit different with multiple shoes in there. Now, the problem is that, and we'll see in just a minute, most of the casinos have actually changed what the basic rules for blackjack are and the payouts, which are really terrible. And you probably have to go to some high roller stakes of betting, you know, over $25 or $100 a hand in order to get the old traditional blackjack rules. And we're going to take a look at some of that. So to thwart card counting, because that was a big thing, there's several movies that have been made about it. They have multiple decks per shoe, and they only get through maybe half of all of those decks before they reshuffle. Or they have these continuous shuffle machines that have multiple decks in there, where they're just constantly shuffling. So you don't know, what cards are still left because they're all back into the pile again. This increases the house edge to about 0.54%, just a little bit. Eight decks in there is more about 0.56% on the house edge, so it ups it a little bit. But the main reason to have multiple decks, and especially the continuous shuffle multi-deck shoes, is to thwart the card counting, because you're not able to do that anymore. The real kicker is that most casinos in the 2000s have changed the rules in blackjack. So it used to be that the dealer would always stand on all 17s, including a soft 17, which is an ace and a 6. So if the dealer had an ace or a 6, they would stand. That's called a soft 17, because an ace can either be a 1 or 11. So they'd make an 11, and then plus 6 is 17. But you can use the ace as a 1 and say, oh, this is a 7 instead. in most cases, when the player was dealt a soft 17, depending on what the dealer had up, you'd almost always take a hit on that. Well, now they changed the rules that the dealer hits on a soft 17. They don't stay on a soft 17 anymore. This increases the house edge by about 0.2%. So now we're at about 0.75%. And that's still pretty good, still less than 1%. But the real kicker is that almost all of the Vegas strip casinos, and especially the low dollar amount, like the $5, $10, $15 tables, they changed the rules so that instead of blackjack paying, getting an ace and a face card or a 10 on the deal, used to pay 3 to 2. This is 1.5. And that really helped the player. But now it's 6 to 5, which is almost even odds. And this increases the house edge by about 1.36 or 1.39%, depending on how you do it. But this adds a lot. This adds a lot to the house edge. And this alone makes blackjack not very good anymore. So most casinos these days have, say, 6 or 8 decks, which gives you a house edge of 5.54 or 0.56%. Dealer hits a soft 17, which adds to the house edge another 0.2%. But again, this is the kicker. This is the kicker, and there's been so much written up about just boycott, avoid all of these blackjack tables that pay a blackjack of 6 to 5. The trouble is that more of the people that are going to casinos are younger, and they just don't care, and they thought that it's always been like this. And after a while, us older people who knew what blackjack really was, and a blackjack payoff was 3 to 2 instead of 6 to 5, they're just getting used to it. So this gives the house edge of over 2%. So still better, much better than roulette, but we're going to see that we can do even better. Now, there's all these other restrictions that they put into place, and this usually comes down to these gimmick variations of blackjack. They'll have a thing where, all the cards are face up, including both cards from the dealer. So you know exactly what the dealer has, so you can hit to try to beat it. The trouble is when you do face up, or another common one is the player is dealt 2 hands, and you get to switch which cards you want. So you end up getting 4 cards, so you can make 2 hands out of those 4 cards any way that you want. So you can switch cards around to create 2 hands, maybe one hand that's a definite winner and one that might be a winner, or whatever in there, or be able to switch things around so that you can double down. The trouble is that they add all these restrictions. So they restrict double downs so that instead of you being able to double down any pair of cards, you can only do an 11 or a 10. If you're dealt like a 6 and a 5, or a 5 and a 5, 6, 4, whatever for a 10. So this increases the house edge, or negative for us. Dealer wins ties. So most of these face ups and 2 switches, they have dealer wins ties. So you come up to this blackjack table and you think, oh my God, I can switch hands, a face up, I get to see what the dealer has. Well, guess what? If you tie, instead of a push where nobody wins or loses, the dealer actually wins. This is a 9% house edge, which is terrible. They also have resplitting restrictions. So like if you split 8s and then you get an 8 on one of the 8s, you can't split it again. Blackjacks sometimes are paid, only 1 to 1 instead of 6 to 5. So that ups it to an additional 2.32%. So we just keep adding all these things. And again, most people do not play a perfect basic strategy. They use an imperfect basic strategy, which can be anywhere between 1 and 2% in the house favor, because they let emotions drive them and not necessarily follow the perfect basic strategy. So these things alone, especially this blackjack, only paying 6 to 5, and sometimes could be more based on the number of decks you have. This number can actually increase. Be worse for the player, and better for the house edge. So these things alone, especially this puppy here, has made blackjack not that interesting to play, especially from a probability and increasing the house edge quite a bit. Blackjack used to be great, now it's not, but again, you have to really search to try to find something that you can afford where you're not betting $100 per hand, where you get the full strategy of the old strategy where the blackjack would pay 3-2 and the dealer would stand on a soft 17 to get more of your 0.5% house edge. Any questions about blackjack that people might have? Okay, again, we can always come back to this. Now we're going to craps. So craps is really my new game. I used to never play craps because I look at it and there's all these different games within it. Just, everybody's yelling, money is throwing all over the place, but it really is one of the best games to play. It's fast and furious, so you really do need to learn how to play it. It's much harder to understand how to play and how to bet and the various multiples of betting. But once you get the hang of it, we're going to see that there's really only just a very small little part of this entire board that we're actually going to be playing, because we're going to do analysis of all these, not all, but most of these different games within this one game of craps, and see that most of them are not worth doing at all because they have terrible house edge. So there's many games in one, but we're only going to be paying the pass line and the come bets. And we'll see how that, and here's the big thing, is taking odds. So we're going to see that the odds that you can place once a point has been established is the only game in Vegas that pays true odds. So you really do get a full payout on that, and possibly placing on the 6 and 8, and we'll talk about that. We definitely want to avoid all of these center proposition bets, and we're going to cover those very quickly toward the end of this. And the field bets, you look at this, you go, oh my God, look at all these numbers. And in fact, if it lands, if we roll a 2 or a 12, we get paid double. This is too good to be true. Well, it is, because it's still a bad bet. Plus the big 6 and big 8, we're going to talk about that very briefly. You don't want to do any of that. So we can eliminate most of this table, even though you'll go there and see tons of people playing all of these other proposition bets. You don't want to do it. Now, this is a very difficult game to be a dealer on also. So notice that we have two dealers, a dealer over here that's handling this half of the craps table, a dealer right here that's handling this half. We've got a stick man, and he's called a stick man because he's got a stick, and he's the one that's in control of pulling and putting the dice to the person, whoever it is, that's shooting the dice and rolling the dice here to the other side. And the stick man here, also takes care of all the center stuff. We also have a box man who is taking care of all the money and overseeing all of these other 3 people and what they're doing. In addition, there's usually behind the box man is I can't think of the name now, of a guy who's floating. He is a pit boss that floats around to the different tables, and he can come and help too. Now, I really like to stand next to a dealer, because this is how you learn. You can talk to the dealer and ask them, what's the right number of, coin, chips to put down and this and that. And don't be afraid to ask the dealer for help. Now, nice thing about, being kind of close to a dealer like this on this side or over here on this side is that you get to talk to them. And I've talked to many dealers, and some of the questions that I ask them initially is, so what other games have you been a dealer for? And how long did it take you to get comfortable with craps? So the general answer to the first question is that they've probably been a dealer on almost every other table game, casino game and it takes years. It actually takes years to become a very proficient dealer. Some dealers are a year in and they go, yeah, still sometimes I have to ask for help or this or that, because it's very difficult. Money's flying, chips flying all over the place. And depending on what is bet, you have to come up with the payouts excuse me, for the different games in here very quickly and keep track of all these people that are around here that are betting all over the place and keep track. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people here keeping track of what's going on, and usually a pit boss back here also helping out if need be. Now, the thing about these dealers, once they do this, so one dealer said that he almost cried the first day he was dealing with some because he was making mistakes and it was so fast and he felt that he wouldn't do it. Now he says, and almost all of them say they could never go back to dealing anything else because craps is so exciting. And once, you taste good wine, you can't go back to, the grape juice and anything else. So this is very fast and furious, but they do it. They say that the dropout rate for new dealers on craps is very high, but dealers are really good. And we were going to talk about tipping. You want to tip, but definitely stand, especially when you first start learning craps, stand close to a dealer. You don't need to be right next to them, but just close enough to them because you're going to be tossing some coins to the dealer that wherever you're closer to do some numbers up here when we talk about that a little bit later on. And just some nomenclature here. 11 is more commonly called a yo. So that's a yo because 11 and 7 are very similar sounding. So instead of what was that? That was a 7. Was that 11? No, it's a 7. So they called it a yo to distinguish 11 from a 7 there. And we'll get back to this a little bit. So if we look at the dice chart for this, we see what the probability of all the different 36 combinations that we can roll with the 2 dice. And this is just another way of looking at it. A 1 and 1 is 2, a 2 and 1 is a 3, or a 2 and 1 is a 3, etc. across. I like using this a little bit better because it shows you, a 7 is the most is the number that has the highest probability of showing up because there's 6 out of 36 ways of rolling a 7. 6 and 8 are next at 5. 5 and 9 are next with 4 ways of doing it. And then 4 and 10 are 3 ways to do it. And we'll talk about the 2 and 3 and 11 and 12 in just a minute. But these are the main numbers that we really care about is 4 through 10 when we're doing our betting. Okay, so when we first start off, let's assume that we're doing $5 chips. So sometimes it's hard to find a $5 table where the minimum bet is $5. If it's $10, then just double everything that we're going to talk about. If the minimum is $15, then triple everything we're doing, but do things and think in terms of $5 chips. How many $5 chips am I putting up? And then just either double or triple. If it's a $25 table and you're rich enough to be able to do that, then just multiply everything times 5. Do it. Now, normally, especially if you're just learning and starting off in this, you probably want to wait for a new roll. So wait until a 7 has been thrown, which will completely clear all the money off of the craps table, and they're going to have a new come out roll to establish a new pass line point. So there's no point established. So there's a button here. On one side, it says off, and another side, it says on. So this off side will be up and laying around somewhere to indicate that this is a come out and all the bets are off to begin with. Okay, so you want to kind of wait until it's off so that you could come and just start with the pass line bets. So we put a $5 chip on the pass line right in front of you. So say we're standing right here. So we'll just put a $5 chip in this pass line groove, wherever it is, just right in front of us. And we'll put a $5 chip. Now on the come out roll, before a point has been established, so the off button is, the off side of the button is face up. It says that there's no point that's been established for the pass line yet. If what is rolled is a 7 or 11 rolled on that come out, we win even money. So if we put $5 up, we win $5. It's even money. So we win that right away. We're going to look at the probability of getting that. If a craps is rolled, which is a 2, 3, or 12, then we lose immediately. That $5 chip is pulled up by the dealer. And then if we want to play again, we put another $5 chip on the pass line here. If a 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, any of these numbers come up, then that establishes a point. Then what happens is the dealer on both sides will flip the off, off on button over to the other side to on and put it on the number that was rolled. That is our point. And what we want to do then to win this pass line bet at this point, once a point is established, is that we want this number to be rolled, say in this case 6, before a 7. And we're going to look at the odds for that. Okay, so the whole idea is that now if a 6 is rolled before a 7, then our one chip, $5 chip pass line bet, we win that even money. So we get another $5 and we pull that off. Okay. If a 7 is rolled before a 6, then we lose our pass line bet. So off the money goes rolling off. So once we get a point established, all we care about is in our universe is, in this case, 6s and 7s. We want a 6 to come up before a 7. If the point that gets established is a 4, then all we care about is a 4 coming up before a 7, or a 5 before a 7, 8, 9, 10 before a 7. All other numbers that are rolled do not matter for this particular bet. Okay? So here we have the probabilities again up here in this corner. So the biggest advantage for this pass line bet is on the come out roll, because the probability of rolling a 7 or 11 where we win immediately without doing anything is the probability of a 7. So there's 6 ways to roll a 7, and there's 2 ways to roll 11, which is giving us a 22% chance of winning on a rollout. That's actually pretty good. You know, so 1 in 5 chances, 1 in 5 rolls on average, we're going to win on that. So that's a quick, easy $5 that we win, or whatever our base bet is that we put up there. So the probability of rolling a craps on the come out is there's only 1 way to do a 2, there's 2 ways to do a 3, and only 1 way to do a 12, which gives us an 11%. So we've got a double chance of winning on the come out bet than losing. So this is pretty good, 2 to 1 chance of winning. Now, what we really want to do, though, is when we have the pass line bet, is once that's established, the odds are now against the player. So a 7 or 11 is not rolled, a 2, 3, or 12 is not rolled. One of the other numbers that are up here, one of these other numbers is rolled, and this establishes a point then. We have a point established in here. And now the only thing that matters is whether that number that the point is established on gets rolled before a 7. But the odds that a 7 is rolled is greater than any other point, because a 7 has 6 different possible configurations to create a 7, where everything else is less than that. Okay. But the universe of the values on the dice that we care about at this point is whatever the point is and a 7, and that's it. So if we take a look at this, we can see that for the first rollout, establishing a 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, or 10 are these odds. So how many ways are there to roll a 4? Well, we see there's 3 out of 36. There's 4 out of 36 for a 5, 6, etc. for these. So this is the initial setup to establish the point. Now, once that point is established, our universe is not 36, all these dice. We only care about the point that has been reached and then a 7. So let's take a look at a 6 first of all. So if we look at the 6, we're looking for a 6 before a 7 gets rolled. So there are 6 ways to roll a 7, 5 ways to roll a 6. So our total universe is just 11. Just these 11 dice combinations is all that matters. If any other number is rolled other than a 6 or a 7, it does not affect this pass line bet. So it could be other bets that you have on there, but it's not affecting this. So if we look at that, what is the probability of rolling a 6 before a 7? Well, there's 5 6s out of a total of 11. So we have 5 11s. That is the probability of having out of just the 6 and the 7s, the 6 rolled out of there. So we multiply this because these are not completely disjoint. What's the probability of winning the pass line bet if a 6 gets established as our point, and then subsequently a 6 gets rolled before a 7? We multiply this out and we get this 25 over 396. Don't worry about that big number. Likewise, let's look at the 4 real quick. So 4, there's 3 ways to roll a 4 plus the 6 ways for a 7. So 6 plus 3 is 9, and there's 3 ways to roll a 4. So that's 3 over 9, which is 1/3. 3 over 9 or 1/3. And again, this is just reduced form, and then multiply, we get this. So this is the odds of establishing a point and then hitting that point again before a 7 in general probability. And again, remember, dice have no memory, so each of these trying to hit that point again is a completely separate and discrete event that doesn't rely on what happened before. But in order to calculate the probability of getting 2 4s here before 7, we have to multiply the probability of getting a 4 in the first place, and then the probability of getting a 4 before 7 to get the overall probability for that. Now, so pass line bets, then, what is the probability to win? Well, we either hit a 7 or 11 on the rollout, or one of these others that we talked about here. We add all of these up because we don't know which point is going to get established, but establishing a point and then making that point again before a 7 gives us this 0.492929. And then 1 minus that is the probability that we're going to lose, which is a little over 50%. So the house edge, subtracting that out, becomes 1.4%, which is actually really good compared to roulette, which was 5.26%, and compared to most regular low limit blackjack tables, which is over 2%, 1.4% is actually pretty good. And this is strictly just playing the pass line. But we're going to see that we can do even better by taking odds, because we get full true odds payoff on that. Now, this is really one of the best bets in any casino, especially since it takes no skill. All we do is put a $5 chip on the pass line right here. All we do is put a $5 chip on the pass line and sit back and wait. And the house edge just for that is about 1.4% on the house edge, which is actually very good for most casino games. Okay. Now, what we want to do though is help our odds by taking odds. And again, this is a bet where it pays the true odds for that particular number. And this is the only bet in casinos that actually pays true odds. So again, we're betting $5 on the pass line. Once a number is established on the come out roll, we want to put double the pass line bet. So in this case, we're doing $5. We put $10 behind it. So here's our pass line bet. So right behind it, between it and you standing here, we put the $10 right behind it as our backing bet or odds bet. Okay, so we're taking odds, and the payoff then on the odds is going to be based on which of these numbers was established as our point, and we're going to see that in just a minute. So if your point is rolled before 7 is rolled, then you win even money on the pass line bet, plus the true odds for that, which depends on which point it is that we have here. But we put $10 up here, and we're going to see that we can either win $20 from that $10, $15 for that $10, or $12 for that $10 that we put up. But if the 7 is rolled before the point is rolled, then we lose everything. We lose the pass line bet that we put here, plus our odds bet that we put behind here. So we lose all that $15 in this particular case. We lose. So we're betting that our number is going to come up before them. Now, taking odds, again, this is the only bet in the casino that pays true odds for anything. We look at the true odds payoff for, say, a 4 and a 10. Let's look at a 4 first of all. So there's 3 ways of getting a 4 versus 6 ways of getting a 7. If we roll a 7 and the point that's established as a 4, we lose. So there's 6 to 3 in favor of busting or losing with that 7. So the true odds is 2 to 1. If we put up 1 chip for the odds on the point that's established on 4, we're going to get paid 2 chips. So if we put $5, we get $10. Well, we're going to end up doing double odds. So we put $10 up and we win $20. So here's our pass line bet of $5. We're playing double odds, so we put twice the amount of money as the odds bet on the right behind the pass line bet, not in the pass line, but just right behind it. And then if we win, if a 4 or this 10 comes up, which is the point that's established before 7, then the pass line just pays even money, just pays that $5, but we get true odds on our odds bet. So the odds for a 4 or 10 is 2 to 1. So we get paid $20 for the $10 that we put down. So the potential win is $25 plus our original $15, the $5 plus the $5 bet, and then the $10 odd bet in there. The potential loss is all limited to the $15 that are here. So this is how we make money. You make money by putting odds and then the getting paid true odds, as opposed to any of the other games where we saw that they never paid true odds for any of the other things, say like on the roulette that we just looked at, or even blackjack. You don't even get true odds on that. Now, if it's a 5 or 6, so look at this, 4 and 10, so the outer two have the same odds. Then we go in and the 5 and 9 have the same odds. And then the 6 and 8 have the same odds. And we can see that here. The 4 and the 10 have the same odds, 3 each in there. The 5 and the 9 have 4 each, and the 6 and the 8 have 5 each on there versus the 6 in here. So this pays 3 to 2. So if we put $10 up, we're going to win 15. So 1.5, or we put 2 chips up, 2 $5 chips, we get 3 chips. Okay? And then the 6 and 10, the true odds are 6 to 5. So if we put up $5, then we're going to win $6. If we put 2 $5 chips, 10, then we'll win $12 for a total win of $17. The $12 on the odds bet plus the $5 on the pass line bet. And then again, our $15 that we put down. But we're limiting our potential loss to just being $15, but our reward is relatively high. And the only way that we are making money and why this is good is because the odds bet that we put up pays us the true odds. It's the true odds payoff. And this again is the only casino game that I know of, and you know, I played them all, that actually gives you true odds on the payoff. So this is how you can make money and how to reduce the house edge. So if you just pay the pass line without doing any odds bet, its house edge is about 1.4%. Doing single odds, just putting the same amount behind there, drops it down to about 0.85 because this one-time odd is being paid at true odds. So it's reducing because the house has an edge, but it doesn't have an edge because you're getting more money back, so it reduces that. Here we looked at double odds, which I recommend, which brings it down to 0.6%. Now, some casinos allow you, most of them allow you to do 3, 4, 5 times odds. So the 2 outer ones, you can do 3 to win 6. The next inner 2, you can do 4 to win 6. And then the 6 and 8, 5 to win 6. So you can place 5 chips to win 6 chips on that. And that's a 5 to 6 there. And with 5 times odds, you can reduce it down to 0.33%, which is really, really good. That's under 0.5%. So 3, 4, 5 times odds is getting it under 0.5%, which is better than perfect basic strategy on blackjack these days. But again, you got to watch out for yourself and say, well, wait a minute, if you're starting to put too much, then this is assuming that we're at a $5 table. You're putting, if it's a 6 or an 8 and you put full 5 times odds, you're putting $25 up there, and the losses are going to be relatively high. If it's a $10 table, you're putting $50 up. If it's a $25 table, then you're putting a whole lot more up there. So you got to be careful, because the more you bet, the easier it is to go broke on a bad run of dice, because in the end, it's all about luck. And we're just looking at overall average probabilities on this. But the odds bet is the way to go, and that's the one that do. Okay, so come bets are just like virtual pass line bets. So once a point has been established and we've got our pass line bet and then we put our odds bet, what we could do is bet on the next roll. and we put our coin, our bet, in the come area across from where we are, and the big come area is all across here. So anybody that's here will put, say, a $5 chip in the come. We've already got our pass line bet and a point established, and then we have our double odds here. So we could do another one. This is another virtual pass line bet, but it's called a come. Now, the same rules apply on the come out roll for a pass line. If with 7 or 11 is rolled, we win this come bet. But if a 7 is rolled, then we lose our pass line and the odds bet, and we only win 1-to-1 on the come bet. If a 2, 3, or 12 is rolled, it doesn't affect our pass line bet and odds bet, but then we lose this come bet and we'd have to put another coin out there again. So let's just say that one of these numbers, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 is rolled when we have a come bet. The dealer will take our come bet and put, let's just say it's a 4. We'll then put it up here in the corner and it's rolled around like this because the dealer is facing this way. So the dealer has different positions that you will put your bets based on where the people are around this section of the craps table. He'll put it there. Now, what you want to do then is do double odds on this. So what you will do is you'll kind of toss $10 to $5 coins just right around here and tell the dealer you want to take odds on that come bet. And what the dealer will do then is position it so that your base bet is underneath and then offset your odds bet off just a little bit so you can tell the difference between the base bet and the odds bet for the payoff. The base bet is 1-to-1, but the odds bet is true odds on this. And for a 7 or 10, that's 2-to-1. So he knows how much to pay you off on that. Okay. So when in doubt, you can always ask the dealer, but if you're following the basic strategy of doing double odds, it's really easy. Whatever the base bet is on that table, you put that down and then put twice as much behind it for the odds. And if you play the come line, just do the same thing, pay, give the dealer twice as much on that. And there's not a whole lot that you have to remember in order for you to do that. Now we have, in this example, we have 2 bets. We've got our pass line and odds, whatever is on here for the pass line. And then we also have a come. So let's just say that we have a 6 for a pass and then a 4 on our come with odds. Now, to win the pass line bet, we want a 6 to come up before a 7. To win this come line bet that we just made, we want a 4 to come up before a 7. If a 7 comes up, we lose it all. So it's really easy to spread and get a lot of money out there. And then with one roll, a 7 coming up, boom, we lose it all. So just got to be aware that you don't want to bet too much on this, but start off with just a pass line and then maybe add a come or 2 in there as we go along. If the pass line wins, say the 6 comes up, we get our 1-to-1 on the pass line bet, and then 6 to 5 true odds on the backing bet, the odds bet, and we pull that off. We win that. The come bet is still active because we haven't rolled a 7 before a 4, and we're still looking for that. But because we're on a come out roll, this is when they would put the off button up here to say there's no numbers established yet for the pass line, but the come line bets are still there, but the off means that they're not active. So that if we roll a 4, that's a 4 that's being established and not necessarily us for winning. And that's very common that all the bets are off when you win on that. Okay, so we also have don't pass and don't come. So here's the don't pass and don't come here. Now, the thing that I want to point out, first of all, is that if a 12 is rolled, it's a push. You don't win or lose. And see, you have a 12 here, the double 6s right here, and that indicates that the casino, that the rules on that casino is that 12 is a push. You don't win, you don't lose. And we're going to see that that's to bring the odds for pass and don't pass, come and don't come to be the same. So this is the opposite of pass and come. So we put a $5 chip or whatever on the don't pass bar. And then if a 7 or 11 is rolled, we lose immediately. Because 12 is not part of the universe, it's a slightly higher chance of losing on that first roll for a 7 or 11 to come out, because it's 8 out of 35 versus 8 out of 36 in here. If a 2 or 3 is rolled, then we win. But that's only an 8%, which is less than 11% on the other way, with a 12 being a loss. And the 12 is just a push in here. Once a point is established, if a 7 is rolled before the point, then we win, because we're saying, we're betting the opposite. We're betting that we don't push or don't come, in that we're betting that a 7 is going to come up before the number. Now, this is sometimes called wrong way betting, wrong betting, betting against the table, betting against the shooter and all, because 99.9% of all the people that bet on a craps table is betting with the dice, betting pass and comes with the odds, as opposed to don't pass or don't come, where they're betting that all the players will lose versus actually win. Right? Now, when you do odds on your don't pass or don't come bets, you have to lay or give odds, because once a point is established, it's way in your favor that a 7 is going to win. And again, the odds payoff is 2 to 1, but we have to put the 2 up in order to get the 1. So for the 4 or 10, if we put 5 on the don't pass, and then we want to take odds, we've got to put $20 up in order to win 10. So we are doing the opposite of the odds. We have to put up more money to win a base of 10. So we either put 20 up to win 10, 15 to win 10, or 12 to win 10, because a 7 is much more probable of coming up before any of these other numbers. And that's in our favor, so we have to lay odds or actually give odds for that. Now, one thing to notice about when you do don't pass or don't come is that you put a variable amount of odds up, so you have a variable amount of potential loss, where you only have a constant amount of potential wins plus whatever your bets are. Now, I want to go back to the pass and come double odds to show that it's just the opposite. When you're playing with the dice or with the table, you have a constant or a fixed amount of odds that you put up, which is your double odds, but you're going to have a variable amount of winning based on the odds there, and you have a constant amount of potential loss as opposed to variable increasing, and then a variable amount of potential profit that you have. Most people will bet with the dice and play pass and come versus don't pass and don't come. In fact, there have been plenty of tables that I've gone to where if somebody comes and starts playing the don't pass and don't come, people will pick up their chips and leave and refuse to be at a table where somebody is playing against the shooter, against the dice, against the table, because it's more of a communal effort where everybody is trying to win and fight the odds against the 7. Now, the overall house odds then for playing don't pass and don't come is just slightly better than the house odds for a pass. And then the same thing with the odds. They're pretty much equal. There's only, 0.05% difference in them. But it's more the psychology and all. And the only way to get these close to each other is by having the 12 not count as anything. So the universe of numbers that we're dealing with is only 35 and 36, because this double 6, the 12 is basically a push, and that helps even out the odds. Now, some people will say, hey, but look at, it's better. It's really not that much better. And the psychology and also the potential losses is way higher doing this. And again, this is only a $5 table. If you're at a $10 or $15 table, you got to multiply all these by 2 and 3, which can really drive up the amount of money that you're betting and potentially losing. So again, I highly recommend just sticking with, the pass and come and doing double odds. it minimizes your potential losses and you get your gains, and that's what you're really looking for, besides having fun and getting lots of cocktails as you come along. Okay, so place bets. So the place bets is a way that you can give the dealer, you say, I want to place on, say, the 6 or 8 or whatever, and you toss him some money, and he will put it again, excuse me, in a place that is associated with where you are standing around the table. The dealer keeps track of all of these things for you, but you start getting to notice where it is. Again, one nice thing about being right next to the dealer is that every spot that they'll put for places or come bets are always going to be at a corner right next to you, so you can keep track of that. Now, this is a bet where you're betting that no matter what number is established, and you can only do place bets after a number is established, you're betting that that number is going to come up before a 7. Now, the true odds for these we've seen before: 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 6 to 5, but the casino changes the payouts. So the payout is 9 to 5, 7 to 5, or 7 to 6. Now, the house edge is only lowest on placing on the 6 and the 8. You'll see people placing on all these numbers, big values, but they're really not, doing themselves a favor, because they may get lucky and win all that, but really the lower house edge is just placing on the 5. So what you do is you bet 6 to win 7 for a $5 table. So you give them 6 and say place on. So you could do 12. So $12, place on the 6 and 8. They'll put 6 on the 6 and 6 on the 8. And if a 6 comes up or an 8 comes up before 7, you win $7. So it's paid 6 to win 7, but the house edge is 1.5. So again, a lot better than the bad blackjack these days, and definitely a lot better than the roulette, but not nearly as good as our pass or come line bet with odds, because that gets down to about 0.6% house edge on that. Okay, and again, usually if, let's just say that we have some place bets up here and we hit the pass line number, whatever number had been established as our point, then they'll take it to an off, and that means that all of the bets up here are off. So let's just say that we roll a 6. 6 is our point for the pass line bet. So you'd only just place bets on the 8. If a 4, 5, or 9, or 10, and you want to do place, then you place $6 each on both the 6 and 8. Now, if it's a $10 table, $10 is more than 6. So any bit has to be a minimum of $10. So you double this, make it $12 to win $14. So you do $12 each on the 6 and the 8. Now, commonly, if it's off, and we're rolling out, and we haven't rolled a 7, but we did roll and win on the pass line bet and our odds. And we have money on the 6 and the 8, and then a 6 or an 8 comes up. The dealer will ask, what do you want to do with your place bet? Because now that's the main bet for the pass line. Now, normally, let's just say the 6 was the point before, and then an 8 comes. You can just move the place bet from the 8 to the 6, or just pull it off. You just pull it off and say, no, I'm just playing the pass line on there. But the off button also then means that these bets that are up here are off for that particular roll until a new point gets established for a pass line come out. Okay, so let's talk about some lousy bets. So we talked about only the pass and the come and maybe placing on the 6 and 8. That's the only thing that you should even think about doing. All the stuff in the middle here, all these hard ways and one roll and the C&E, which is craps and 11, this big 6 and big 8, you want to avoid all of those. Those are proposition bets that do not do well at all. And the field, also the field, watch out here. So again, the field, a lot of people play the field because they think, oh my goodness, look at, if a 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, or a 12 comes up, I win. In fact, if a 2 or 12 comes up, I win twice as much. So this is a one-time roll. If it isn't one of these numbers, you lose. If it is one of these numbers, then you win, but you only win 1 to 1, but you win 2 to 1 if it's a 2 or 12. So let's look at this. So it's the 2 or 12. You have $1 that you bet plus $2 being pulled off. So you're pulling off $3 of your money. And if these others that are paying 1 to 1, you get your $1 winning plus the $1 that you bet, which is 2. And if it's one of these, any of these other numbers that's not one of those, then you lose that money. And that ends up being negative 2 over 36, which is 5.56%. So this is really bad. This is on the order of a little worse than roulette, playing the field. So you don't want to play the field. This is a lousy bet because the house edge is 5.5%. And you could do much, much better just playing the pass line. Just the pass line without odds is 1.4% house edge, which is way, way, way better. Even the just playing the 6 and the 8, just placing the 6 and 8 is only a 1.5% house edge. So you don't want to do the field bet. And if you played the field in the past and you've won, you just got lucky, but in the long run, you're going to lose. Bad. Okay, another one is the hard ways. So here's a bunch of the hard ways up here. So a hard way is two twos, 2 3s, 2 4s, or 2 5s to do that. So this is called 4 the hard way, 6, 8, and 10 the hard way. So the hard way is rolling a 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5, 4, each of those different ones. So let's just take a look at 8 the hard way. So 8 the hard way is a 4 to 4 to add up the 8. And there's only 1 out of 11 ways of doing that, because out of the 8 here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways to roll an 8, and then 6 ways to roll a 7, because again, we're trying to have this 4 and 4 come up before a 7. So our universe of possible numbers that we care about for this particular bet is 11. The 6 of the 7s and the 5s of the 8s. But only 1 out of those 11s, the 4 and 4, is 8 the hard way. So the true odds for rolling this is 1 out of 11, which is a payout would be 10 to 1. We get paid 10 plus our $1 that we bet is 11 out of 11. So that's just even, that's no house edge at all, and that's true odds. But the payout is only 9 to 1 instead of 10 to 1. Paid 9 plus your wins for $10. So we do the math here again, and we get a house edge of 9%. This is terrible. A house edge of 9%. That's very bad, very bad. More lousy bets, any crap. So any 2, 3, or 12, the true odds are 8 to 1. The house only pays 7 to 1. That's an 11% house edge. Any 7 rolled, well, the true odds is a 5 to 1. House only pays 4 to 1. That's almost a 17% house edge. Terrible. A 3 or a yod. So these are 2 separate run roll bets. So these are all 1 roll bets. So on that roll, you either win or you lose, and you lose that money, and you can do it. So the true odds is 17 to 1. Only pays 15 to 1. So it's an 11% house edge, which again is very bad. More lousy bets. 2 or the 12. So these are 2 separate 1 roll events again, that either a 2 or a 12 is going to, it's 35 to 1, but it only pays 30 to 1. So it's a 14% house edge, which is terrible. A horn bet, which is around the horn, the 2 on the 2 edges of the spectrum of the different values of dice, 2 and 3, and then at the high end is 11 and 12. And C and E is craps and 11. So craps is 2, 3, 12, and 11 is 11, or the yo. So C and E, craps and 11 is the same as a horn bet. House edge on this, because of the payout, is a house edge of 12.5%. And you would not believe the number of people who play C and E all the time, but it's terrible. It's only 12.5%. The house edge is 12.5%, which is terrible. Big 6, big 8 is the same as placing the 6 and the 8, except that you get even money instead of 7 to 6. So instead of paying 6 pays you 7, you just get even money. So then the house edge is 9%. So you want to avoid all of these and other proposition bets, all of these things that are in the middle here and the field bet, all of these things in the middle here and the field bets, depending on which side of the table you're on, avoid those. So we're only going to be paying pass line and then double odds possibly playing one come bet and then double odds. They'll do it like that. And maybe placing on the 6 and 8, but to start with, we just do the pass line. Now, again, remember when we do the pass line, the universe of numbers that we care about is whichever point has been established and the 7. So let's just say a 9 is our point. So any other number besides a 9 and a 7 does not come into play with us winning or losing this particular bet. So you could be sitting there and they're throwing all these numbers, everything other than a 9 or a 7, and other people are raking in money, they're losing money, they're making tons of money, lots of action happening, but we don't care. It doesn't matter for us. And this is where you will start thinking, especially early on, saying, oh my God, you know, everybody's making so much money. And I'm sitting here with this one lousy pass line with odds, and my number and the 7 aren't coming up, so I'm not winning or losing. Nothing's happening, but everybody else is excited and they're all winning money. Don't do that. What you want to do is stick to your plan. Do not start betting here. Do not do the field. Say, oh, I feel lucky, I'm going to do this, because you're going to ruin all of the probabilities of you winning, and you're not going to be happy unless you just get really lucky. You know. So in summary for the craps, you stick to the pass line with double odds, and that gives you a house edge of about 0.6%. This is really one of the best deals that you can find in a casino these days, and especially since you don't need to learn basic strategy, you don't need to follow any particular rules other than you put up whatever the base bet is on the pass line, and then put twice as much behind it as your odds bet. And you wait and wait and wait for it to come in. Now, once you become more comfortable, you can consider adding a come bet or two with the double odds again. So this is adding a completely separate bet with a house edge of 0.6% again. The trouble is that if you get too many of these out there, a 7 gets rolled and boom, you lose all of those. But you might win on the pass line bet and still have a come bet out there. You might win on the come bet, but not win on the pass line bet yet, and do more come bets based on the winnings that you made just from the come bets. But the only way to really reduce the house edge from 1.4%, which is really good to begin with, down under 1 and here to 0.6%, is by taking odds. And double odds is a good sweet spot because you're not putting too much money up, and you're not going to lose too much if you get on a really bad streak where you establish a point and then you put your odds and then you throw a 7. You put your pass line bet, establish a point, put your odds bet, and then a 7 gets thrown. So a 7 every other time is terrible, and that's the worst time. But that happens sometimes, and other times I've been at a table where somebody throws for half an hour, 45 minutes without ever throwing a 7, and people are walking away with lots and lots of money. Another one is placing the 6 and the 8, which again is a house edge of 1.5, but you can definitely do better by doing another come bet. But the nice thing about placing, it's only $6 as opposed to betting, say, $15 on that number, 5, and then double odds on that. And when the minimum for the table gets higher and higher and higher, this looks more attractive because you're not spending as much. And again, let's talk about spending much. Taking 3, 4, 5 times odds can really reduce the house edge, but again, you're putting lots more money up. A lot more money up, so your potential losses are greater, but again, your potential gains are greater too. You definitely should just start with sticking with a pass line and double odds to begin with, and then adding maybe a come bet in there. Now, when you win, and you will win, the dealer will put your winnings right next to your bets. It's your job to take those winnings off the table. Otherwise, they're going to be considered bets on the next rollout. So you definitely want to pull your winnings and your odds bet off, and then just put another come or another pass line bet for the next rollout that's coming. You also have to be careful to bet the correct multiples. So as an example, let me go back to the odds here for so the true odds for these numbers, 6 to 5. So if you don't put a multiple of 5 up here for the odds bet for a 6 or an 8, then you round down. they round down. So you have to put a multiple of 5, and then you'll get multiples of 6 on the payout. If you don't have a multiple of 5, you have a multiple of 4 or 3 or whatever, they're going to round down, and you're not going to get paid the full amount. Here, this is a 3 to 2. So you want to do, if it's a 5 or 9, you want to do your odds bet in multiple of 2. So again, if you're doing double whatever your base bet is, you're going to have a multiple of 2 in most cases, and then 2 to 1, it doesn't matter. But this is the key here. So this is why you think in terms of $5 chips. How many $5 chips am I putting up? And for every $5 chip, I'm going to get 6. For every $10, so that your odds are $10. So for every $10, I'm going to win 15. For every $10, I'm going to win 20 for the odds. So you definitely want to make sure that you have, and the same thing for, they won't even let you bet on the place here. They won't even let you put less than $6 down to place on the 6 or the 8 to win 7, because they can't do the payout, and it's against you. They just give you even money, which is not what you want to do. And this is especially true if you're playing anything that is like a video game part of it. So you got to make sure otherwise the payouts are rounded down. Definitely have fun. And you want to tip your dealers and waitresses. So if you're winning, having fun, tip the dealer, especially talking to the dealers. Waitresses are bringing you free cocktails and all. So you want to tip them. And sometimes you can ask the dealer if they just want the tip, or do they want to play the tip, that you're giving them. A lot of times they'll just play the tip and, put it on a really bad house edge. But if they win, then they win like 30 times that amount versus anything else. Okay, so this is the last slide. In the end, again, it's all about luck. I'd rather be lucky than good. Great quote from that blackjack dealer, and I still remember that. Again, you can help yourself with the luck by not making stupid or bad bets. And again, the games that are easy to learn and play and better usually have the worst odds. So this is why I craps. It takes a little while to understand it. It takes a little while to become comfortable. But if you just play the pass line with double odds, that's not hard to do. You just pay the base bet for the pass line and then put double odds right behind it. And that's it. That's one of the best games with best odds that you have in any casino game at all. And above all, you got to have fun. And remember that the longer you play, the greater the chance you're going to lose it all, because there's always a house edge. Now, a lot of what, not everything, but a lot of what I had in my presentation was based or inspired by this book, The Mensa Guide to Casino Gambling Winning Ways. And this is a really fun book. It goes over a lot more other casino games than what I went over. But again, in the end, it's, the craps pass line with double odds or with, odds where you get the full odds payoff is undoubtedly the best. All right, do we have any questions, or do you want to go through another scenario of actually trying to play a quick little round or something?